Probably no subject has more myths and taboos surrounding it than sex.
We have to be very careful. Kissing can make a girl pregnant, you know.
But, my dear, I thought you couldn't get pregnant the first time.
Girls have to be the ones to say no, since when guys get started, they can't stop themselves.
Did you know that sometimes you can get VD just by holding hands?
Although the myths about sex are full of misinformation and half-truths, it's easy to start believing them because we hear them so often.
Most of the myths started in the days before modern birth control techniques, when scare tactics were often used to keep young people from having sex and getting pregnant.
Others arose for just the opposite reason. Young men and women used them to convince their partners that it was safe to experiment with sex.
Still others evolved from the lack of information about physiology, human sexuality, and venereal diseases. The problem is that many of these myths persist today, and their confusing messages often make sexual decisions difficult. For example, many myths are used to explain how conception does or doesn't occur. The problem is that if you believe them, you or your partner could end up pregnant. The fact is that there is only one way to get pregnant, through sexual intercourse. Other stories involve such myths as you can't get pregnant the first time you have sex, and you can only get pregnant if you have an orgasm. These tales, and others like them, are simply not true. And if you make the mistake of believing these myths, the results might be unwanted, as well as unexpected. Many young mothers remember the birth control stories they once believed. Maybe they washed carefully after sex, or they took a friend's birth control pill the next morning. Their children show how unreliable such myths are. And what about the idea that girls are responsible for saying no? The story that boys, after a certain point, can't stop is, at best, a half-truth, and certainly no truer for men than women. You're the only person who can be held responsible for your actions, sex included. It's up to you to make a conscious decision beforehand about how involved you intend your relationships to be and how much of a risk you're willing to take. Another activity surrounded by myths is masturbation. In fact, the word in Latin means to pollute with the hand. Although there are many scare stories about masturbation, they're just that, scare stories. In fact, some experts believe that masturbation can provide a healthy sexual release and can help a person become comfortable with his or her own physical sexuality. Although masturbation presents no health hazard, there are moral problems associated with it for some people. Your actions must be guided by your own personal values.
False stories concerning how venereal diseases occur, and to whom, have also circulated for years. The fact is that venereal diseases are only transmitted sexually. Contracting them from doorknobs, drinking fountains, or toilet seats just isn't possible. And remember, anyone can get VD. Its victims are not limited to dirty or sexually promiscuous people, as you may have been led to believe. The main thing to be learned from examining these superstitions and taboos is the importance of getting correct information about sex. You need to have the facts about your body, what's happening to it, what constitutes normal and abnormal development. Knowing the facts about how pregnancy and VD affect you physiologically will help you make informed, responsible decisions about your sexual activity. If you're looking for facts about sex, don't necessarily believe everything you hear from your friends. They often have no more real information than you do. It's always best if you can go for sexual information to your parents. An open and honest conversation with them can answer many of your questions. There are also people available who have professional knowledge: teachers, guidance counselors, doctors, the clergy, and more of them are being trained in counseling techniques to make it easier for you to talk to them. Many towns have teen counseling centers or hotlines where your questions can be answered objectively and honestly. If these sources fail, there's always the library. There's a lot more in there than novels and encyclopedias. Take a look. Whatever source you choose, the important thing is that you get your questions answered factually and correctly. For the more information you have about yourself, your body, and the way it functions, the better prepared you'll be to make decisions about your own sexuality. And the more you understand about the possible outcome of your sexual decisions, the better prepared you'll be to make choices that can have a positive effect on your future happiness.